When should you do Amazon wholesale?
What are some of the benefits and downsides of this business model? In this video, we'll find the answer to this question by asking top Amazon sellers in the industry who have years of experience and know all the pros and cons of doing wholesale on Amazon. I'm your host, Samuel. Let's get started. Can you give some tips about wholesale? And also, what are the pros of doing wholesale and what are the cons?
I'd say the pros of the wholesale business model is that it's a lot easier to scale than an online arbitrage model. And there's also a lot less work that goes into a product than, let's say, a private label model, because they're already existing brand name products that people are buying. So you don't have to design and manufacture the product. You usually don't have to import the product. You don't have to advertise on the product, which is another huge benefit of wholesale. You're just latching on to products that are already selling. So you can scale a business pretty large just by selling popular products. A disadvantage because of that, it's quite competitive and you have to run at fairly small margins, especially the bigger you go. As you add overhead to your business, you have to be very cognizant of your margin, and it's very easy to go from 10% net margin all the way into the negative if you're not careful, or operate on a very thin line, 2, 3, 4, 5% net margin in your business. It's a bit of a scary place to be, but still a viable business model for sure. And then as for general tips, fight as hard as you can for the best possible price and the best possible terms as well. So sourcing and wholesale is not just about the price, it's also about when can you pay them? Can you pay them with a credit card versus bank transfer? Will they take care of the freight costs? How fast will the products get to you? So there's other factors at play. And the better you can negotiate both price and terms, the better off you're gonna be.
The way I'm doing wholesale, it's a little bit different than traditional wholesale like everybody thinks right now. It's just flipping products. I don't do that anymore, because before you could do that, you can buy 1,000 units, 2,000 units, you just flip for the profit, you're all good. But all the policies and regulations that Amazon do right now, it's becoming complicated. You don't want to be in that game of complicating yourself so much. With Amazon, you can get your account suspended, you can get your funds in reserve, even have your inventory on hold. The way I do it right now, I call it like a wholesale hybrid. So I become like an exclusive, or maybe not exclusive, but authorized seller of the brand. The brand knows I'm buying their product, I'm listing their product. If it's exclusivity, I'm doing all the work for them, positioning the product. It's like almost a private label, but it's still wholesale because the brand is not yours.
Well, some of the advantages are you get a quick return on your cash flow. Your cycle of cash can be very fast if you're managing your inventory properly. You also can establish great relationships with brands through the wholesalers that you're purchasing from, so you can turn those to brand direct exclusive relationships. But there's a lot of cons with wholesale. Some of those are, buy box suppression, because Amazon's analyzing pricing against different marketplaces. The G10 Armageddon, where they recently removed tens of thousands of listings because their UPC information didn't match. So those are complications, absolutely, because if you get a removal of an ASIN and you got thousands of units in stock, it's a costly mistake.
You're going to have to find a place to sell them, right? And then if you can't sell them on Amazon, you're probably going to sell them for less money elsewhere.
And removal orders and disposal fees are very expensive.
For the advantages, I would say one of the most important things is that when you go to a distributor, you can buy like a lot of brands in just one same order. Another thing is, if you're dealing with like good quality suppliers, you're gonna be able to do a restock on the products that you're selling the most, okay? Which is super, super important, especially when you compare that to arbitrage. Arbitrage, you can get maybe like a good sale, you buy a couple units, you sell them, and then when you come back and try to get like those products, they're not in sale anymore, or you can't find any more stock. With wholesale, you're gonna have a more consistent stock of all your products if you do it the right way. The disadvantage, of course, competing with big sellers, which always happens on Amazon. And I do feel for wholesale, if you wanna do it like in a really good level, you're gonna need capital regardless. For the tips, you're gonna need good suppliers, okay? That's the most important thing. Once you have good suppliers, you need to create good relationship with those suppliers. Remember, when we're dealing with suppliers, we're not dealing with a machine or a computer. We're dealing with people. So kind of like be relatable, kind of like try to build up that relationship with that person, and that's gonna give you like a lot of benefits, better prices, discounts, more stock. That's one of the things helped us a lot in the last couple of years.
I think the biggest con, it's very easy to sign up for a wholesale account that is not a authorized distributor. And if you do get hit with a IP complaint, it'll be very difficult to use their invoice to clear that complaint. In terms of the pros, I mean, there's so many pros about it. The replenishability, the volume that you can purchase.
So how do you check if this distributor or this wholesaler do have the authorization to distribute that specific brand?
The safest way is to call the brand, is to ask them who are their authorized distributors, and that's the general safest way to do it. One of the things I do check for if I don't want to go through that route is I make sure that they have a legitimate retail space. A lot of them are gray market dealers. They operate out of a small little office out because all they do is they're like traders. They don't own the inventory. So that's a good red flag to look out for.
Yeah, so wholesale is actually my favorite method of selling. I know that I've taught and done arbitrage replens for years at this point, but I like to take that as the base and the foundation and get that into wholesale later, because wholesale becomes the pro of it, would be that it's a sellable business model. Other people can purchase that business from you and continue to run it. You're building relationships with suppliers, you're able to get consistent inventory, or at least more consistent than arbitrage, and you're able to get discounts at a bulk, typically, that you can't get in stores. Now, some cons is that you do need some more money, usually, to pay for inventory and to put it out there, and so you're risking a little bit more, which is why I recommend new sellers start with arbitrage and replenishable products and being able to build up that base. But once you get that base, you've got the cash flow, getting into wholesale is the next logical step, in my opinion.
Wholesale, it's obviously you can have a product, you can have a set price, and then you can order predictable schedule. However, the wholesale, they will be slightly have a lower margin compared to OA, and then have to be tied to order a fixed number of quantity. But OA, on the other hand, you can order any quantity that you want. Even though you cannot order, depends on the store you can order from, you can order just unlimited. So you have to play the game. There are pros and cons. So I think for now, I would stick with the OA that I know best.
When I go to ASD and I'm looking at new wholesalers, like I try to do a buy right on the spot.
Oh, right on the spot?
Yes.
Like you can just make an order, you see the product, I like it, boom.
Yep. I want to set myself aside from all the other Amazon sellers because I'm good friends with a lot of the people that I buy from, and I'll hang out in their booths and they'll talk to me, and you'll get these people that come up to the conventions and stuff and be like, oh, do you have a business card? Oh, here's my business card. Do you have a business card? Can I get on your list? You're gonna have so much choice, you're not gonna know what to choose. So when I go into a wholesale convention or a trade show, I go in, I look for products that I like, and if I see something I like, I'm doing the buy right there on the spot. I want to set myself aside from the rest of them, and I want to build a relationship with you. And that's how I feel I've been able to navigate really well in wholesale, is because I do my buys on the spot.
What are some advantages and disadvantages of doing wholesale?
Disadvantage with doing wholesale is I do a lot of buyouts. So like might buy a year or 2 years of supply of a product. I'll have my money tied up maybe for a year, but it trickles out every day over a year. Sometimes I might have the money tied up for a little while, so it takes a lot of capital to build that business model. So that is a disadvantage because I'm tying up money into so many SKUs for a long time, as opposed to if you're doing retail arbitrage or OA, that's probably the biggest disadvantage for the way I do wholesale, is tying up the money for so long.
I've gotten into wholesale a little bit. I would say some pros: you can typically order as much as you want. The more you order, the better, as opposed to, online arbitrage. That's probably the biggest problem, is that you can't order enough. So you can buy more. After doing an order, you can usually continue to buy more. So that's probably the pro. The cons of wholesale would be probably lead time. It can take a while for you to actually get your product. Also, sometimes the margins can be a little bit slimmer because you're not really like stacking, different discounts and everything. You're just getting it at a certain price, and there just might not be as much margin there.
So the pros are, it's much less demanding of your own time. You don't need a huge team. You need good ASINs, you need the capital to buy the ASINs, and then you need a way to prep and get the ASINs to Amazon. Once you have that system dialed in, those 3 systems, man, you can kind of just take a step back, take your foot off the gas, and let it run itself. What I found with OA, I needed to constantly battle order cancellations. I needed to constantly battle websites just rejecting me because I purchased too much. And with wholesale, you don't really deal with that too much. I guess the cons of wholesale would be lead time is a lot longer. You have to put a lot of money down unless you get net 30 terms. and you generally overstock on inventory compared to selling books, retail arbitrage, or OA. You can stay pretty lean with those and restock when you want, but with wholesale, there's minimum orders. You might have to buy 200 units. It might take 2 months to sell out. So a little bit more cash tied up in wholesale. And I've actually found wholesale has better margin than OA. For me personally.
Oh, wow.
It all comes down to products and ASINs and different things like that. So it's all relative. But I found that I've made more money and my margin is more. For every 100,000 in sales I do, I'm taking home like 40 grand, 30, 40 grand profit. Whereas with OA, I do 100K in sales, I'm making 10 grand profit. And with books, I do 100K in sales. I am making like 50K profit, but it took forever to find those damn books. You know, to find 100 grand in books is like a lot of work.
I hope you liked this episode, and now you know all the pros and cons of doing Amazon wholesale. Whether you do Amazon online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, or even wholesale, you'll always need a good repricer that can constantly help you win the Amazon buy box. BQool Repricer is the repricer successful sellers choose for their Amazon business, so check it out. See you next time. Bye-bye.